All right. Okay. Hi, folks. So welcome to the Visualization Task Force meeting. So this is an effort to make visualizations easy to choose and easy to use. We are one of the task forces in the BIM4I program led by Jesus Mora. All right. So for the benefit of the task force and the guests I've invited that aren't familiar with what we're doing, I'm going to do a brief overview of what we've done over the past 6 months. After that, we'll have a little panel discussion with visualization practitioners from Caltrans and a few other DOTs and chat about our workflows and the software we use to deliver our visualizations. For our friends outside of Caltrans, please bear with me for a few minutes. But some of this may relate to your department's processes, so it may be of value. All right, so way back in July, I showed this to the group. We have 4 deliverables for this task force that are derived from the Caltrans 2023 BIM4I implementation plan. We have number 1 here, develop framework for visualization scale and visual communication plan to guide project development teams in determining need and level of visualizations, as well as the planning for in-house and oversight projects. Number 2, criteria and scope of work for procuring a statewide service contract for visualizations. Number 3, general guidelines, policy and directive language for implementation of visualizations in the project delivery process. And that's going to be kind of wrapped up in a summary document. And then finally, number 4, identify software and hardware requirements and training needs. By far, the most difficult and most important deliverable on this list is number 1, and where the most time has been spent. Why? Because visualizations are considered very valuable, but they're really subjective. How do you determine how much effort to put into them, how to pay for them, and when to use them? In our first working group meeting, we tackled this deliverable by reviewing level of effort methods from a general range of effort that mimic public engagement efforts to more detailed project and community-based assessments as found in the visual impact assessment questionnaire. And we put this out to the task force. We gathered thoughts in the chat and had a discussion. And we did the same for how we resource visualizations in our work breakdown structure over here at Caltrans, and went through the same exercise. And finally, the best time to use them. So we have specific milestones here at Caltrans, and we went through those and had a chat input in chat and a discussion overall. And so what we found was that the need for visualization spanned a few different WBS codes and milestones, but the general consensus was that visualizations would be emphasized early in 0 phase and extend through the early part of 1 phase. There are exceptions, of course, with a notable one being the need for visualizations in 3 phase construction activities to help assist public affairs in their activities. And we also determined the best place to identify the need for visualizations in the project initiation document were in item 17, additional considerations. So I looked into this just to make sure, and it was awesome. I looked into the latest PID template, and guess what? As of October 2023, after we did this workshop, there is a new item in there. It's item number 8, and this is specifically for public engagement. So Gene had alluded to this in the meeting, saying, hey, they've been putting a lot of work into this. This should probably happen. And Bartney also said, hey, let's, they should change the template. Make this a part of it. Well, there were things happening in the background that made this happen. So it wasn't specifically from what we did, but an opening is now there. And so item number 8 in the PID template is there. And so that is where we should make recommendations at project initiation and put in our hours for public engagement visualizations. So got that one figured out. The toughest one was the leveling of effort for visualizations for a particular project. You can't really base it on scale of a project. So what if it's an expensive repaving out in the middle of nowhere with no environmental impacts? You also can't do it based on visual impacts. Many complete street projects will have minimal visual impacts, but visualizations will be very helpful in stakeholder coordination. What the group decided on was that public engagement would be the best process to determine level of effort, as it captured the essence of how visualizations bring value to project delivery. Seeing this, it seemed appropriate to have some of the brightest minds over here at Caltrans in the world of public engagement address the task force. We had Joy Tite, Office Chief, Landscape Architecture, Support and Planning, and she is heading up Priority Action Plan Team 2.28, Early and Continual Community Input. Bruce Kemp, who has recently retired, congratulations, Bruce, and Sarah Rosen, the from Equity Engagement and Health Branch. And Sarah Rosen is the author of the Public Engagement Plan Guide, very useful and important document that we have here at Caltrans. And then we had John Olejnik. He's Transportation Planning Office Chief over in District 5, and he is considered the best community engagement coordinator in the state. And so we had him speak to us about a day in the life of how this stuff works out. And what did we come away with? So the takeaways: we have an opportunity to modify the actual public engagement guide to better reflect the importance of visualizations. The public engagement guide is a really good document that instructs a public engagement coordinator, or PM, on how best to reach out to stakeholders and how to fold in functional units such as public affairs and environmental early in the project development process. A fantastic tool for spelling out exactly what type of visualizations would be needed for a project. The language in the current edition needs a little help around visualizations, and Sarah was kind enough to invite us to edit that public engagement plan guide a bit. So that is upcoming. At the district level, we found that public engagement planning for 0 through 3 phase is inconsistently used, if at all, with the exception of District 5. From talks with Bruce and Sarah, it seemed John Olejnik in District 5 was the one that was actively developing public engagement plans at a high level. And he also had a lot of input into the public engagement guide, so it makes absolute sense. So John shared with us a little bit his approach to it, and what we came away with was that John has a fantastic understanding of the project delivery process, but he also had to be a bit rogue and insert himself into PDTs and to really let them know about the value of public engagement and this and planning for it. And so he helped us think through that. And then the final takeaway was that public engagement doesn't have a specific due date. There's not going to be a starting gun for when project managers will be required to develop public engagement plans. It'll only be encouraged. Right now, the department is embedding community engagement coordinators in each district to facilitate public engagement, but this is going to take a little bit of time. In our October meeting, we learned about the importance of the visualization efforts in the Division of Engineering Services, specifically in bridge architecture, and how they've been developing visualizations for public engagement and PDT coordination since their inception, and are just a really important partner in this endeavor. We also learned about their integration with BIM4I through their project information model. And so big thanks to Stephen Heath from Bridge Architecture and Lynn Heel from Bridge Design for their fantastic presentations. In our last meeting, we heard from industry leaders in visualization. Gary Allison, he's the director of Jacobs Visual Media Group, gave us a fantastic presentation as well. And Brian Schroof from Beyond Typicals told us a bit about their software and to help us in the planning phases of of our projects. And so today, what's going to happen now is we're going to fold in a discussion about integrating BIM4I a little bit more into what we're doing. So let me just take you through this diagram really quick. And so here we have BIM4I on the bottom and visualizations, the stuff that we've been talking about up here on the top. So the BIM4I model. And so how this is working out, and let's see, just talk through these phases really quick. This is kind of our planning and programming phase right here. Right when it hits 0 through 3 phase, this is actual project delivery. So right here is where we get money for the project and we can actually officially get going. And that is when the BIM4I process starts, and this model starts getting developed in Civil 3D. And that's what the promise of BIM4I is that we have this federated model, or a model that is developed with the input of all the different functional units. And it's collected into the one Civil 3D model. This has been around forever, right? We're just referencing in files, but the idea is to do this earlier in the process, which has not been done. And so when we do that, we have this fantastic opportunity to feed into our visualization process. Right now, as it stands, specifically for my group, we kind of do this a little bit detached from this. But what we'll do is we'll take 2D information out of this and develop our visualizations. And so today we're going to talk a little bit with other DOTs and other practitioners in the state and to see how they do it. And so that'll help inform how we can get the most benefit out of BIM4I. As we continue through this, we see in PS&E development, we start doing a more refined project information model off of the preferred alternative, looking for things like clash detection, refining that model, and we take that, we can continue to use that into the visualizations up here for public engagement. And then finally, and the promise of BIM4I is this model is legal document. So the whole thing, and this is the purpose of it, is that we are no longer in the future going to be delivering 2D plan sets for RTL and bidding, but we will be delivering a 3D model that is continually updated and has the most recent information and contains all the quantities, et cetera, that you could actually want. And it is the future of how we'll be doing this. So after 6 months, we've established the most important part, and that's how we'll determine what visualizations to produce and when. And that's through public engagement planning process and editing the department's planning, public engagement planning process to include visualizations. That's the top half up here. It's now time to have the discussion on how we're going to get the rest of this stuff up into that. And so for this discussion, I've invited visualization practitioners and managers from around the state and from other DOTs to give this group a sense of the current state of affairs and how we develop visualizations, and maybe discover how the BIM4I process can help. There are folks in the audience with similar experience, expertise, and I encourage you to join in the discussion. So on the panel, we have Kurt Stiles. So he's the Visual Engineering Resource Group Manager and mentor to many DOTs throughout the United States on developing visualization groups. Kurt was kind enough to kick off our efforts here in July as a guest speaker. Next is Jackie Carter. Jackie and her counterpart, Chris Harris, are doing a great job over at Oregon DOT, promoting the value of visualizations and developing some amazing work products over there. David, is David in the group today? Let's see. He is. Hi, David. Thanks for joining. I know you're not typically working right now, so I really appreciate it. David is the visualization team lead over at North Carolina's DOT. David and his team are doing some cutting edge visualizations over there that we aspire to copy. He has graciously been helping us a bit figuring out how we can improve our processes over here. Steve is our fearless bridge architect that many of you worked with. As stated before, he has been a long-time practitioner and advocate for visualizations and a great support to the efforts over here in District 4. Scott Dowland, along with Corby Kilmer, have been great proponents of visualizations in District 5 and great participants in the efforts of this task force. Happy to have both of them on the team. All right, guys. So I'm going to prompt the panel with 5 questions. For those in the audience with questions or comments during this discussion, please put them in the chat or raise your hand. Diana Pink will be monitoring. Thank you, Diana. And so the first question for the panel, and then I'll just call on you folks as we go through it, so we don't talk over each other, or just we're gonna have Kurt. You're gonna start off with this one, and then we can just kind of freeform from here. So when do you use visualizations during your project delivery process, sir?
Well, I would say that project delivery starts with planning. Planning planning needs to have a little bit of engineering capability in it, and so a lot of our planners out here have an engineering background at WashDOT. So the thing is, they don't have any design data, but WashDOT is the largest engineering firm in Washington State, so we have a lot of engineering knowledge. So one of the things I've been able to do is to tap into that engineering knowledge and then get enough of an idea of a bridge, of a roundabout, of interchange modification, whatever have you. You can see where I'm going there. And then we go out and we get terrain, either terrain that we already have, 3D terrain, or we'll get government terrain from another source, either feds or a state LiDAR, something like that. And then we'll build visualizations with the engineering idea versus a formal engineering design. Sometimes this is received in a challenging way. Some engineers look at that as kind of corrupting the process, but more enough, we've received a lot of positive comments and insights towards what the design is going to go, because we're not saying that we're going to build that visualization. We're saying we're trying to come to a preferred option, and to get to a decision. So when do you use visualizations in project delivery? I would say that it's in the absolute beginning, and with that engineering idea, emphasizing that, and then taking that forward to when it does go to a design office, a project office, a consultant, however, whoever the actual formal design team is, they've got a little bit of a nugget to work on, and have a good idea. So
you were saying there's a little pushback just because what people are considering it kind of like the final idea because it looks so realistic, or?
Well, visualization as a whole, I've been at this for a long time, and there's still a little bit of reluctance at times, at least up here in Washington State, to put forth that visualized view, because then we're kind of, we've got to get up out of our seat and do our job, right? So we're committing, and some engineers are reluctant to do that. I've been told a few times where, if I wanted to go talk to people, I would have went into social work instead of engineering. And so, but by and large, and through the carrying through time, going through time, it's really improving. And now a lot of our planning products are definitely received in a positive way. It's still not as organized as I want, and you guys are really looking good in Caltrans with your organization towards this. So I want to clap my hands for that for you all. But yeah, that engineering idea and then working that through your modeling, whether you're using Blender or 3ds Max or whatever you're using. You get your terrain and your design together, and you start
Hmm.
being visual with your infrastructure change. That's the whole point here,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
and saying, are we going in the right direction here in your
Right.
decision making body?
You got it. Thanks. Jackie.
Wrong button. There we go. Can you hear me?
Yep. Sure
Awesome.
can.
So much like WashShot, especially if it's a STEP project, we also try to get in as early as possible. Um, and we're doing visualizations in the preliminary design phase of projects so that when specific public engagement needs are identified during the project delivery phase, we're ready to help with the story to
Hmm.
develop, as well as just discuss the deliverables that can help share that story. We've helped provide renderings for grant applications. We've helped with conceptual design alternatives before DAP, and we've joined projects as late as advanced plans. We try to keep it prior to that, but for that project, we were able to jump on pretty quickly because the design was already at about 90%.
Hmm.
So um, we also just started partnering with our planning department as well, and we're going to be helping out with the corridor safety study, providing graphics for that. And we also find it really helpful to sit on these project teams. So we try to get in as early as possible, and we're also updating our ETA website to provide a kind of a request form so that as projects are
Hmm.
kicked off, people can more readily put in those requests so that we can be ready.
Yeah. Who's utilizing these visualizations? So, right, you have all these requests for them, it sounds like.
Mhm.
Where's that request coming from?
So our requests have up to this point just come from when we give presentations to different sections of our agency. We'll then get requests via email or MS Teams, and then we'll join that design team. But we're hoping to make it a little more formal as we move forward.
Yeah.
We just really started this process about a year ago, even though we've been chugging along since 2019, trying to
Good.
build a portfolio of visualizations. But as far as now that we've established our visualization group, we're working on trying to get that request form available
Got it.
so that let people know that it is available and how to use it when it does become live.
Yeah. So over here at Caltrans, we kind of have like one point person that that's leading a lot of the public engagement
Hmm.
process, informally or formally, as we move into this, and that's the project manager. And so I invited a bunch of project managers to this group, and it seems like a few of them showed up, so that's
Hmm.
fantastic. And they hold they hold the money and they hold the schedule.
Yes, and those are
And
the individuals that usually reach out to us is either the project
okay,
leader or the project manager after they've
got it.
seen our presentations.
Fantastic. All right, good. And how has it been trying to get that message out to them that because I've seen your menu of services, which is
Mm,
fantastic, and we're trying to do something similar over here. Is that something you deliver to the project managers and let them pick through it? Or do you just kind of like you have to do one-on-one marketing with them?
So when the request comes in, we'll provide the menu and then we'll set up a meeting to go over that menu, but we'll give them a chance to peruse the menu beforehand.
Like any good waiter would. Okay, awesome. Thanks. All right. Hey, David, you got anything for us on this one?
Um, can you hear me okay?
You sure can. Thank you for joining. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, the vast majority of our work is done in the public involvement process. Uh,
Hmm.
but we have, we have done work anywhere from conceptual stage all the way through to construction and even after construction, depending on what kind of issues arise.
Hmm.
Um, but probably 90% of it, at least, is public involvement.
Okay.
And North Carolina has developed in the last couple of years a project delivery network. They call it. It's more of a plan and the public involvement plan is supposed to be created in the project initiation phase. And that's when you would, you know, figure out what kind of visualization you might need and get the ball rolling. Sometimes it happens that early, sometimes it doesn't. The majority, we very rarely do we do a visualization project where we don't have some sort of plan, whether it's conceptual plan or you know, multiple alternates. Don't very often have to create one out of thin air, which is good.
Well, it sounds like you're doing it the right way. You're doing it very early in the process, and and what initiates it is public involvement. So that's really smart. And I understand that, right? Your group sits in the environmental department. Do you guys do do you do visualizations for kind of working with permitting agencies, say like U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and helping them understand what's going on with the project?
That we've done work, you know, trying to get buy-in from the Park Service and the Forest Service and things like that. We're actually in the public involvement group within the environmental analysis unit.
Okay.
And under the umbrella of environmental analysis, we have architecture, state historic preservation.
Mhm.
We do work for them, you know, in the creation of the environmental document. They'll trying to get approval from the historic society and
Sure.
things like that.
Yeah. Those are tough ones to get through sometimes. Um, Thank you. Appreciate it, David. Scott.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, at Caltrans, we've talked about visual communications supporting basically all phases of project development. You know, so like I think Kurt and Jackie talked about early on, the planning phase, doing feasibility studies, grant applications. There's a lot of opportunities with that and capturing money for new types of projects. Then in the project initiation document phase, we're looking at developing conceptual design developments and alternatives, doing some project fact sheets to kind of bring all our stakeholders on board early on. During the project approval and environmental document phase, we've talked about using visual communication to help with environmental clearance and agency approvals, and that's through really transparent disclosure of project impacts. Using visual communications for public hearing presentations and displays for public or for project acceptance. And then doing some alternative comparisons, and that's for both internal design and external communication of, like, you know, really developing internally what alternatives we have, presenting those to the public and getting feedback and, you know, initiating that dialogue. And then when we get into the actual plan specs and estimate, the PS&E phase, we're kind of continuing that in community engagement process. We're again using it as that internal design and collaboration tool, which is very important, you know, because the design doesn't just stop at P&ED. You know, when we've selected a design, we're continuing to develop it, and we really want to use these visual communication tools to be able to speak with our other functional units in the department, so that we come up with the best solutions possible. And then we're using it to obviously develop different types of aesthetic treatments, and then get our coastal development permits and architectural review board approval. And then finally, in construction, we're using these tools for community meetings, using stakeholder updates and public information, collaborating with our public information officers for supplying graphics for press releases and social media. So a lot of opportunities in all phases with that. Corby, did you want to add anything?
No, I think you covered it really well. I think that the lesson learned is the more we do, the more people start to ask us for more pieces, right? They start to see the nexus between what that visual tool can do for them to make life easier. I just got a request this morning to take one of our sims that we did at the, the PID stage, basically, and we're going to print it up and put it on a sign that we're going to put in front of the construction site saying coming soon, to let people know that project that they weighed in on and had a lot of ownership of is now going to happen, and they can expect to start to see road closures at a certain time and things like that. So what I love about the visual tools is, as Scott mentioned, they're at every phase and they come full circle. And then I've used the Sims again as follow-up to ribbon cutting ceremonies and feedback to original project sponsors to show them how those visual tools were used to make the project go more smoothly. And everybody at headquarters and PIO and places like that are hungry for that imagery where, it sounds a little like patting yourself on the back, but it really is important to show people, hey, here's what we envisioned and here's how it came to fruition.
Yeah. Thank you, Corby. I love your background, and you look like a spiritual leader. So, Scott, since you guys and Corby, you guys have John down there leading as a community engagement coordinator who's just really knocking it out of the park. Do you see an opening there, or not an opening? It seems like this is the best way to formalize how we develop this idea of pricing out and figuring out level of effort for visualizations. I know in District 5, you guys do talk about this idea of continual, like it's just a part of the process. And Scott, you've said that before, like, right, it should just be another part of our language. But at the same time, we need to defend that a little bit. And it seems like the public engagement plan would be the place for that. Do you see that? Are you finding opportunities to plug it into that, or at least have that inform what visualizations you're going to develop?
Absolutely. I think the community engagement plan process is really the opportunity to identify kind of the level of engagement, right? So we're looking at each specific project. We're determining what is that level of engagement, how are we going to be communicating with our stakeholders, and what are the products that we're going to produce. Once we've kind of outlined that, then that sticks. That's kind of that's the umbrella of the project. That's the overriding goals of it. So therefore, then when we go ahead and start resourcing for, okay, what are we going to develop as far as visual communication? It's not the landscape architecture department or the visual, department determining it in a vacuum. It's already been determined by all the functional units. And so then we go ahead and we say, okay, based on what we're going to produce, this is how long it's going to take us to produce.
Okay, good.
I would add that what's great about John's process, he's really at the kickoff now of every project. He's holding a community engagement, kind of a brainstorming session, and he brings up the 6 key questions. And it's really gratifying to see how much functional units that never probably considered this as part of their process, as part of context-sensitive design, as part of equity, are starting to chime in and really embrace it right from the beginning, so that they become champions of those visualization tools, beyond just landscape. It doesn't rest only on our shoulders anymore, because now they're saying, hey, remember at the beginning we said we were going to do thus and such? Is that happening? Right? That part of it, that dissemination and ownership thing is really going to be the thing that takes this forward, I think.
Nice. And is this at the end of K phase, at the beginning of 0 phase? When's he doing this stuff? Mostly, or when are you guys finding it most useful?
Mostly he's doing it at I would say the PID phase, at the K phase. Right. But again, now that we have that plan in place, it becomes a touchstone that we can keep revisiting at every phase, saying, hey, remember at the beginning we said we were going to do whatever. is now the time to do that community workshop or that press release or that
Great.
whatever.
Yeah, it'll get
And-
programmed in the project. Mm-hmm.
And because it's great timing having John do that at the beginning of the project, because then at the end of K phase, that's when we resource our projects, right? That's when a
Mhm.
functional unit or work plan is sent out. So right out the gate, we already know what the expectations are so that we can provide the necessary resources.
That's right. Awesome. Great stuff, guys. Thank you. And so, while you guys got your cameras on, we'll just go back to you. How are you guys paying for these things? Not free. So, Scott, Corby, is this something that you guys are getting? Is it just a part of the landscape architecture department? Is it baked into what you're putting in hours for in the beginning stages? Or
Corby, you're on mute.
It's twofold. At the K phase, it really is just baked into the process, right? Again, it's an expected component of the kickoff of the PID, and K phase is just resourced with X number of hours, and nobody really questions it. And then going forward, when Scott and I do work plans, we just include it in our work plan as part of our work products based on what kind of comes out of that PID kickoff, right?
Yep.
So the PID says, hey, we're probably going to need, a video or a 360 tour, or it says, nah, we're just going to need a couple fact sheets.
Yeah.
And then we'll tweak our work plan resource request accordingly. To my knowledge, nobody has questioned at all
Yeah.
our hours on this and see it as a worthwhile expenditure. Scott, did you
Correct.
have anything to add?
Yeah, just the way we've been communicating this is, there's going to be some extra resources on the front end, but what we expect is that we're going to gain efficiencies on the back end. So we're going to see projects are actually going to be more efficient. Yeah, will landscape architecture maybe have some more hours on the front end? Yes. But we think we're going to save time through our environmental permitting review, the engineers having to go out to the public and present projects over, and the PM. So there's efficiencies that we're going to gain.
Got it. Great.
I think we've had some real life lessons in that recently, where some older projects that hadn't had that sort of approach at the beginning tried to sort of circumvent some public outreach or skip some steps, and it came back to bite them, right? So now they're really hungry for those visualizations to get them back on track and on schedule. So I hate to see that happen to people, but at the same time, the secret inner bad angel of me is like, oh yes, good. Yes, come, let us help you.
Good stuff. Thank you. David, how do you guys pay for these things over there in North Carolina? Or are they just kind of included in everything?
Well, now that we are on the DOT, we used to be in IT, and everything was overhead. Those days were easier. Now we it usually gets charged to the project. Whichever project it's being done for is where it gets charged.
Yeah. Is it hard to defend, or do the folks appreciate the value that they bring to the project?
Yeah, I used to see a lot of what Kurt was talking about, where some of the engineers didn't want to, didn't want to do that because it was going to cause some extra heartburn. But I think most people now are on board with it needs to be done, and it's helpful in the end. I think Jamil has had a lot to do with that. Jamil's my boss.
All right. That's good to have support from management. And you guys do such good work that I imagine after they see it, they're like, all right, well, we'll support that.
Well, we do what we can.
Jackie, how you guys doing that over in Oregon?
So we typically charge project EAs for our visualization work. We try to keep the project leaders and the project managers updated on the amount of hours that are expected to be
Yeah.
charged, and we haven't gotten any pushback on that. So that's typically how we've been charging it. We also have an internal charge for visualization research, just in case it's
Nice.
a non-specific project that we're working on, if we're trying out new software. But yeah, that's typically so far how we've been paying for our deliverables.
Oh, I need that charge code, visualization research. I'm getting one of those somehow. Someday. Kurt?
Yeah, you know, I learned a long time ago that if I can get the Verge, my group, if I can get us as a line item, right, and either through a line item from a project budget, from a planning standpoint, or design, or construction, the better we're going to be, as well as developing business plans with major project groups. We'll have a project program that will have multiple large projects underneath it, and so then I'll develop a business plan with those people. And so what I'm doing is I'm setting expectations of use, and I don't have to run around with my hat in my hand, asking for work. Um, Having said that, planning is the hardest place because they're woefully undernourished from a financial standpoint up here in Washington State. So what I've been able to do is to get that constant charge from a support engineering support funding from the legislature. So we're 50% covered with that for everything. And so then I just have to look for 50% for, if we work for you for, 2 weeks, you're going to pay for 1 week, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's getting better through time. We have to prove ourselves and to make sure that we're a safe bet, right? That we're going to follow through with what we say, and the metrics of the products are going to follow through, and they're going to work each and every time. So you develop a reputation, and then the project that the planners, DOT here in Washington State has 6 regions. I think you guys have 11, 12 districts.
District.
Yeah. And so, but that means that there's 6 different DOTs that I've got to work with, because they all function differently, and none of them like headquarters. So, it was hand to mouth, but it's a lot better now. But it's 50%. We're asking for 50% chargeback, and we're able to get it, but it's because of our reputation, not necessarily because we've had a secretary's executive order, which I've asked for and have been rebuffed. So I think what you guys are doing, especially with the 2 Caltrans folks that were talking earlier, being able to get on a line item, you're part of it costs money to do this work. And so if you can become part of that expectation of delivery and become a line item, the better you're going to be in the long run.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate it. So Kurt.
Hey,
Yeah.
Joaquin, I just wanted to add one other thing from a kind of a big picture perspective. A lot of programs at Caltrans are funded by identifying how they align with the strategic plan, right? If you can show that your program aligns with the strategic plan and you can meet specific strategies, then you can gain a lot of traction that way. And I think visual communication, when I look at the 5 goals of our strategic plan, it definitely ties in with cultivating excellence and that opportunity to improve, update, and adopt and advance equity in what we do. And then stewardship and efficiencies. It talks about, again, the equity, and then promoting and implementing innovative and creative solutions, right? So right there, we're targeting in with our strategies, and then the equity and livability. collaborating with partner agencies to make equitable solutions. So, if we can keep telling this story of like, we are advancing the department's vision, mission, and goals, and we've tied into these specific strategies, then once we get general buy-in, I think it'll be, there'll be more acceptance in understanding that we need to be resourced. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that. So let's loop back here. Kurt, how are you guys determining how much effort you're going to put into these things when you're going to do a full-on kind of fly-through animation? You're going to do before and after sim and call it a day.
Yeah. No, this is a wicked good question. Probably the hardest one to ask, really. And I mentioned earlier in the chat, determining the right visualization at the right time for the right reason. And back in 2009, University of Buffalo was hired by the FHWA to do a study on visualizations, and they put together a great overarching video story that about design visualization for infrastructure change, and they went into but they came up with that comment: right visualization, right time for the right reason. And then I tabbed on to the end to the right audience. So what determines your type and level of visualization is what is the type and level of your engagement. If you're everything is story based, everything is message based, and you're looking for engagement, not just communications, but engagement. So you're going to want discourse, you're going to want a conversation, and you're going to want responses. And some of those responses are like, for instance, North Carolina and the folks with David and Jamil Robbins. I really admire their work there in North Carolina, and they also use a public engagement company called Public Input, and they'll get tremendous amounts of metrics back and understandings from their visual media as part of their overall engagement processes. So what determines the type of visualizations you're going to build is, what do you want to say? Who do you want to say it to? And what do you want to get out of it in the end? So if you're in a planning, it's going to be lightweight. It has to be lightweight. It can't be a real high order, lots of animations, and it's got to be kind of almost schematic, made just believable enough to get the design issue discussed. But then once you get into funding, proper funding, depending on, we just got done talking about that, but then you can, and you get into formal design, you're at a preferred option. If you were able to help with that preferred option, kudos to you, the visualization crew. But then you get into the preferred option and it goes to a design, and you get that initial thrust of funding from your state legislature. Now you can start working with actual design surfaces. And so the visualization team is going to be connected at the hip with the designers, and then becoming their visual voice creator. So it just boils down to what's your story, who do you want to say it to, and what do you want to get out of it? And then knowing your technical skill sets to where, I can do that roundabout real quick in SketchUp, but I could make it really cool looking in 3ds Max, but that's going to cost a lot more money. So you need to understand what you're able to deliver, how long it takes, what is the mission goal of your engagement media, and then going, okay, I can handle that if I just do this as a minimum. But that takes a lot of time and effort and wisdom, right? So it's like I say, it's a tough question, number 3.
Yeah. And that's, we wrestled with it for quite a bit. And part of our wrestling team, Steve, when you're doing this stuff and with aesthetics and just the overall design of our bridge structures, kind of what are you thinking of when you're building out your visualizations?
Yeah, I want to piggyback right on to Kurt. Kurt, what he just went through is exactly our world. There is so much that goes into it. The visualization part of it stems off of, we also are tasked with the architectural design of the structure as well. So not only do we have visualization for public outreach, we also have earlier visualizations. We work with the structure design team developing these architectural elements. And so what goes into the level is just like Chris said, it's wide open to what is the task and what's needed. I could say, I could verbatim match, Kurt with exactly word for word, but what he said was exactly where well, it just depends on a lot. What we're doing, but typically the advantage we have, I think, is not only do we have our side, but then we pair with district landscape, you guys, for the aesthetics, and then you have the district side of it to continue that process. So we've got a big team between our unit, your unit. We've got a big team that attacks this problem, and I'm thankful for that. From what I'm hearing from a lot of DOTs, it's like, well, we kind of do this and we have to get help from here, so that's kind of like where we're at.
Awesome. Quick comment. Kurt?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, I have all of these little sayings, Kurtisms, right, of the world of visual communication. And I always say, when I'm coaching or mentoring or holding the hand of a client, whether it's a project engineer or assistant regional administrator or a public works director, or whatever, and we're trying to answer number 3, because really 3 is we're developing our script. We're developing our roadmap, and you're never going to do just one big fat visualization and then call it good and walk away and and then say I did such a good job. It's visualization is you're developing a language that's going to run the length of the project, and it's going to come and go. It's going to have short deadlines, it's going to have long deadlines. It's chronic in a good way. And but I came up with this saying that when you go to grandma's house for Thanksgiving dinner, you don't go there and then she puts a jack in your mouth and cranks your mouth open and then just takes the whole plate and dumps it in. You eat a little bit, you drink, you eat a little bit, you drink, you talk, you love your family, and you're sitting there for hours and hours enjoying, that meal. And it's the same thing as the answer for number 3 here, is because you don't want to think, oh, I just need to do one visualization.
Yeah.
4 or 5 or 6 visualizations, little lifts, right? This is what you're trying to do is the heavy lifting of sharing knowledge so that people understand. We're in the understanding business with our engagement. Yeah, I say engagement, and it's a great word, but the real reason why we're engaging is so that we share knowledge and we get understanding, and so that we can get consent and funding and permitting and yada yada yada.
Right.
So everybody here is, and all of you project engineers from Caltrans, you got to deal with understanding on a daily basis. That's why you need, Joaquin and to develop and Steve and Bridge and all of these great folks, as a team to then develop your visual voice so that you can maintain that understanding and delivery. But please don't think that, don't worry about doing it all in one visualization. I just wanted to get that out there. When you're determining the type and level of visualizations, think, break it up in little sections and don't eat too much at one time.
Well, thank you for the Kurtism. I appreciate that. And I'm hoping our public engagement plan will be grandma's menu for Thanksgiving. Number 4. So, Kurt, I'll go back to you since you just spoke. When do you ask for help? Do you use consultants? Like, is there projects that are too big? I know we have some like that over here in California that just, I don't know if we can handle it.
Well, I've been fortunate enough to mentor and to have a consultant assistance. We don't hand a project over to them and then we walk away and tell the DOT client, hey, good luck, buddy. We're still on the hook for handling and directing the consultants, but the consultants will do the production. And we're there with direction, with script writing, if we're doing voiceovers, we're there, but instead
Yeah.
of hiring more staff, which I can't do and never will be able to do, we're using consultants for that. And so I recommend that. And I know that Caltrans has, you got a lot more infrastructure than WashDOT does, and some big ticket items down there with the high-speed rail and things. So I recommend that when you do use consultants, that you do that. Keep direction. Keep your thumb on the pulse of the visual content or visual media creation, so that expectations are set and managed by you guys. But the consultant is there with the
Yeah.
shovel in her hand, building your product. But I'm also, really proprietary.
Yeah.
We've had consultants that have tried to come in through the back door, contact the Secretary of Transportation, and then, I want to keep on feeding my crew. So,
Yeah.
I've had to shut some consultants down that way,
Yeah.
that have tried to, like I say, come in through the back door. But, everything's fair in love and war and civil engineering. So, but, but yeah, everything is done through me. I
Okay.
don't ask for help, and then somebody comes and puts their arm around me and says, "Yeah, okay, yeah, what can we do to help you, Kurt?" That
Yeah.
person doesn't exist. So I had to go find my own consultants, but we do use them, and except that we direct them as well.
Got it. So David, over there in North Carolina, I know you guys have, I think, right? You shared with us some interesting stuff that your consultants have done for you. How do you use consultants?
Well, we haven't been as fortunate as Kurt, in that we have 14 divisions in North Carolina, and they don't always contact us. And even within the central office, visualization gets sent out to consultants all the time without me even knowing about it. So it happens a lot. As far as my office, I have a hard time saying no. So we rarely turn work away unless, like you say, it's just, there has been some projects that are so big we can't handle it. And we've had some work done, like a virtual environment situation where we didn't really have that capability, and we had to have consultants do that. But we generally do handle most of the requests that come our way. Occasionally we will get a consultant to help. But a lot of times the consultants just get the work either from the division or the project manager.
Okay.
Either maybe they don't know we exist. We've had a lot of turnover in North Carolina over the last few years. Or they just, would rather work with their consultant if they already have a consultant
Yeah.
doing the design work.
Got it. Thank you. Steve, I'm guessing you're not sending out. Have you guys ever done that?
No, we haven't had to. We've
Yeah.
pretty much covered it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you guys are awesome. You don't need any help.
Oh, come on.
Jackie. Jackie.
Hey. When we do need help, we typically ask for help internally from survey for deliverables like ortho mosaics.
Right.
When otherwise, it's either EA travels, or we'll just get the local survey group to do it, which is always cheaper. And we haven't had a no from survey yet. They're very easy to work with. Our major projects office typically outsources visualizations to consultants for our larger projects, like the I-5 bridge. For projects where we've worked with on consultants, the consultants have already been assigned to the project. As an example, for our wildlife crossing project,
Right.
the video development consultant was already contracted and producing existing condition videos with interviews from, I believe, ODOT and the Southern Oregon Wildlife Coalition. When we got on that project, we ended up just sending them our proposed simulations for the conceptual structure, which they inserted into the videos themselves, and it was a really great product. We've also worked on projects where the design was consulted out, and we did the visualizations, and they would send us their design files via either ProjectWise if they're using ProjectWise or Move It. And for question 3, I didn't get to answer
Oh, sorry.
oh no, it's okay. It's just piggybacking a lot on what Kurt said. So what determines our level and type of visualizations is our kickoff meetings with our project managers and our project leaders. For our kickoff process, we receive the request. We meet with the project leader to discuss the story, much like Kurt covered, that they would like to tell through the deliverables that we develop. We review that project visualization services with the project leader, that menu that we provide. We establish needs for existing surfaces and or reality meshes if that's something that's needed. And then we obtain the designer's 3D files if those are available, or if it's really early on in the process, we typically generate those conceptual designs on our own. And then as the project progresses through the design phase, we like to sit on these project teams so that if any additional requests comes up, we're up to date on the project and we can further advise what deliverables could show whatever's being requested.
Yeah, and it sounds like you guys are evolving to the same state as Kurt, where you guys become advisors within the project development teams on all visualizations, as opposed to just contributing. You're also kind of telling the folks what would be best for the group.
Yes,
Appreciate
absolutely.
that. Appreciate that. And just quick question from the group here. So Brad is asking, has anyone written a task order for a consultant? All right, I'll leave that hanging out there for a bit. Oh, see Kurt.
Yes, and I answered that person.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, yeah, and if anybody obviously goes without saying, but if you want to talk about stuff like that or anything else, get a hold of me after the fact. But we've done a lot of master task agreements. So how that works is, in a nutshell, is we get all of the paperwork finished to do business legally, and then but we haven't spent any money, and then we write a task order, and all the who, what, when, where, why gets done, conditions get set. Verge is the director, XYZ Visualization Shop is the producer, and then we go to work. So.
Okay. All right. Scott, Corby, you guys doing any work with consultants for visualizations?
Yeah, at this point, we're not. I mean, we've been lucky to hire a lot of our staff that have these technical skills to do these visualizations. And so we've been managing our workload just internally. So we haven't considered it at this point, but we're just kind of on the cusp of this as we continue to develop it. So maybe in the future.
Got it. Got it.
One circumstance where we have interfaced, I guess would be the best way to say, with consultants. A lot of our projects where the locals hold the purse strings. We had a recent large project on Highway 68. It has 9 roundabout locations. It's fairly complex. And the funding partner is the local transportation cog, TAMPC. And so they hired a consultant to do the community outreach. And it was kind of interesting because, and how they got this firm, I don't know all the backstory, but they were out of Australia. And so their perspective on things was a little Australian, I guess. And we ended up having a lot of discussions with them. One of the things they created was a virtual public meeting room where people could stream online, but the idea was that they would feel like they were walking into a community engagement meeting, and they would walk up to different easels, and there'd be something on that easel, and then they'd click that picture and it would take them to other links and stuff. So it was fairly sophisticated, but it also had a lot of entourage and stuff in it that really had nothing to do with the demographics of that community, that didn't really speak to California in a lot of ways. So it was interesting. And then to, deal with them where you constantly feel like that price thing is going ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching every time you make a critique or suggestion. But the other thing that they did and we addressed a lot was the dual language aspect. Their whole presentation was only in English, again, for a community that is easily more than 50% Spanish speaking. And there was sort of a mad scramble at the end to accommodate a lot of that. Yeah. And we ended up making several products for them to kind of fill that gap at the last minute. So again, they brought some interesting tools that I hadn't seen before, but it definitely required us to interact with them to make it positive for our project.
Awesome. Great, thank you. All right, last one, guys. Corby, Scott, do you guys have a sense? So, what software are you guys using for your visualizations over there?
So, we rely heavily on the Adobe suite as far as Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign. We're using SketchUp. We're working on getting a Lumion license. We've used, so we're exploring that. And then, as I mentioned to you, one of our employees stumbled upon the InfraWorks, and so we're playing around with that. And then also Civil 3D is, we're pulling files from engineers in Civil 3D and using that as kind of our wireframe modeling tool as well.
Yeah, and you saw from that diagram that is the future of BIM4I, and that is where we can find some efficiencies. If that Civil 3D model is developed to a certain level, right at the beginning of zero phase, we can use that in developing our visualizations. So I think Civil 3D is maybe key to our success.
I think that's one of our biggest challenges, Joaquin, is every time I come to one of your meetings, I'm hearing some new tool, some new app, some new program, and that feeling of, oh, have we just spent our money on something and there's something else that's better, right? Like we're really trying to get that Lumion license. It's sort of hard to stay ahead of the curve. And with very limited funding at this point for the software kind of stuff, it makes it hard to feel like committing to something and then looking over your shoulder a year later and going, oh, why didn't we get that? So I'd love to see from a headquarters standpoint if we could do more to sort of look at this. I don't want to lock us in statewide, but at the same time, find a way that we pay for some of these hardware upgrades in a way that where the burden doesn't fall so heavily on our department, right? And then software, Scott might have mentioned, we have one computer in the office that's going to be dedicated, and it's been souped up a little bit to better handle some of the bigger programs, especially the 3D modeling programs, so that we don't crash and burn so often. But like Scott said, that new InfoWorks seems pretty awesome and less prone to that sort of thing and having oversized files. So
okay, all right. Good stuff. Let's see. David. Oh, actually, before I leave you guys, so you're talking about the hardware. You guys have you're dedicating one piece of equipment. Is that a laptop or a desktop?
It's a desktop tower in the office.
Okay.
And then, I only know enough to be dangerous sometimes.
Yeah. All right. Great. Thanks.
Just to elaborate what Corby was saying. So we looked at, I think the heaviest software usage was Lumion. So we looked at those Lumion requirements, and we were actually able to work with IT to get us an upgraded computer that was pretty close to those requirements without having, just as we didn't actually have to purchase a new computer with that. They said, oh, we'll just replace this because this is very close to one of the standardized computers that we have. So we were able to upgrade that without an impact to our budget. So that was
Nice.
good.
Very good. Very good.
Joaquin, let me jump on this if I can.
Yeah. Awesome. You were getting called on next anyway.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wanted to jump. Corby was saying, I couldn't help but laugh when she said about, keeping up with the software. You and I have been doing this for a long time. How many different versions of software have we looked at and played around with? We've got, Formsy, Illustrator, the Adobe products, 3ds Studio Max. We've got people on staff who have Maya experience. We're looking at other software as well. But we, like you were saying, Scott, all of our staff have high-end HP computers that we bought for high-end visualization and modeling for that fact, because we were using the older computers that kept crashing, like you guys have alluded to, right? And it's frustrating. So, but along with that lines, yeah, you have to stay up, not only in software, but hardware. You got to stay ahead of the game. And I'm sure everybody on this panel will answer that and probably, cheer or jump up and down. Yeah, you have to stay ahead of it. And it's constantly changing every day. Like Joaquin, you asked me, hey, do we want to lock in a software? No, because next month something else is going to come out or some new version is going to come up. And you're constantly playing that game, Corby, of did I just spend money on something and now something better shows up, right? So I just want to throw that out there that I think we're all probably there.
What's your hardware situation, Steve?
I have to go back and look and see, but it's one of the the new HPZs that had, we went full bore on the graphics package and the memory package for it.
Is it a laptop?
No, we got desktops.
All right. Got it. Thank you. Thank you. And I apologize to all the folks that aren't into this technical part. This is like when we're going to kind of nerd out right now with all the visualization folks. So apologies to the group. Jackie.
Yeah, so as far as current software we're using, we are using MicroStation Connect, Open Roads Designers for the civil data, and then LumenRT, Adobe Premiere Pro for the video edits, Adobe Photoshop for 3D rendering edits. We are dabbling in beyond typicals, and I believe our remote sensing group's also using Concept Station, which I'm going to start dabbling in as well. And then we always have a pending software testing list, but
Nice.
so far on my list still to test is Blender. I believe we got the okay from our software folks to install that, Kula, and then SketchUp. And then as far as hardware, I also have a PC that was built to withstand the simulations. This includes an updated graphics card and additional RAM. And then we also have testing computers in the office as well.
Fun. Good stuff. And Brad, we'll get to your question in a second here. Let's see. David, I know you guys got 3ds Max up and running. What else you got over there?
Yeah, we use 3D Studio Max for modeling and V-Ray for rendering, the Adobe suite for post-production video editing, After Effects, Premiere, Photoshop, and we of course use MicroStation Open Roads for gathering our design data and exporting it to DWG format to bring it into Studio Max. Our hardware, we got new computers a couple years ago, and we got some biggest ones we could convince them to buy for us. Some Lenovo workstations with AMD Threadripper processors and two Quattro video cards with 24
Nice.
gig of RAM, 256 gig of
What?
RAM on the computer. Funny story, working for the government, we have a state government contract for computers, and we have to buy from HP, Lenovo, or I think there's 3 big manufacturers we had to buy from. And I originally submitted for, the hottest gaming card I could buy. Well, HP will not put a gaming card in a workstation.
Yeah.
So we ended up spending $5,000 for a video card instead of 1,500.
Oh, gee.
And the whole process took about 2 years to get, and I had to go back and research computers 2 or 3 times because everything had changed by then, right? So that's always a constant struggle. I dread
Yeah.
when our computers need to be replaced. But that being said, the future, and we also have about a 30 computer render farm that is dedicated just to rendering. Which render farms are kind of a thing of the past now. Everything's GPU rendering. You can render 10 times faster on a video card than you can on a CPU.
Yeah.
So that's the future. We haven't got to the future yet, but that's where it's at.
Got it. Got it. Thank you.
Joaquin,
Yeah.
Joaquin, I have why doesn't everybody just farm their stuff out to David?
Yeah.
He just opened the door for everybody.
There you go. A co-op with North Carolina DOT for certain render farms.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I'm very jealous, David.
Yeah.
Well, I happen to have a very good relationship with our IT department since we used to work in the IT department.
Burning bridge. That's funny. So, Kurt, what do you guys got over there? And I guess it sounds like you can address Brad's question about free software as well.
Yeah. I mean, out here at the DOT in Washington State, we tend to look at things from a very cost effective and you don't have a budget, so how do you going to make it happen? And we did have a budget at one time. We don't anymore, but we did, and back when we did, we went both ways. We were Autodesk, and we were also Bentley Systems. And anybody in the business in civil engineering will understand that. It's like Coke and Pepsi. Either you're going to be Bentley or you're going to be Autodesk. Obviously, Caltrans is Autodesk, and
We're
but
Bentley
we were, yeah, well, exactly, and we were kind of that way because I wanted Verge to be able to handle either whoever we were working with, if they were Autodesk, we could go down that road. So we were actually, and when InfraWorks, Autodesk InfraWorks was actually being built originally back in 08 and 09, we were an evaluator for that from Autodesk. So we were connected with Autodesk, and but as the years have rolled by and budgets have come and went, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse up here in the Pacific Northwest. So now, adding to the fact that I'm getting ready to punch out with these next few years, but want to keep on doing this. I want to bring a different view of this, and that is, what is the absolute drop dead minimum that you need to do good work? And Blender is really it's going to be, we're in the process of transferring over from that. Like Jackie, we're Bentley, so we're going to be using MicroStation or MicroStation Connect, and then the Open Roads Designer for the roadway design software. We depend on our region project design teams to give us those 3D road and topography surfaces, those 3D triangles. But you're going to find that when you're building content, visual communication content, the first thing you've got to do is build a 3D model. And a lot of design teams, if you're talking about formal design, a lot of design teams, their 3D models aren't ready for prime time. They've got holes, they've got spikes, there's sections of roads that are completely missing. The terrain is haphazard. So the first thing you've got to do then is to ingest that formal design surface and then fix it and repair it, or you throw it back to them and say, this is terrible, you need to redo this because you're asking me to make judgments that are getting into design. and I have an engineering background, so I can say something about a roundabout design or a bridge design or whatever, but that's not my job. So we're, a lot of times we'll toss stuff back to the project office, which is kind of difficult for them to hear. Um, but but you're going to be, once that 3D model is built, then you're going to either be doing static visualizations, or you're going to be doing simple animations like fly-throughs or flybys or orbits, or you're going to be making very complicated productions that you're
Yeah.
going to need scripted animations with a lot of superfluous 3D garnish tossed in, like 3D vehicle traffic, people walking around, mothers with prams, things like that.
Yeah.
And so what is the minimum that you can get away with? Well, Blender can do all of that for you, and it's free.
Okay.
It rivals 3ds Max. It's in constant development. It's as stable as the Eiffel Tower. And like I say, I'm getting ready to punch out and do this commercially. So I don't want to sign on to a whole bunch of Autodesk, thousands and thousands of dollars a year.
Okay.
So we use that. Like some of the other folks here, we're completely with Adobe for all of our video productions. Verge has a complete video production suite capability in it, as well as drones, aerial footage, helicopters, blah blah blah. And but there's Da Vinci, there's Camtasia, there's some a lot less expensive than Adobe, for image manipulations and video production,
Yeah.
and it's getting better all the time. Uh, we also use SketchUp. I'm a big believer in SketchUp. It's lightweight, it's fun. How Trimble is treating it than how the previous owners of it.
Yeah.
I've got some bones there that I won't pick right now, but it is highly capable, and it's getting better. AI is coming into it. We haven't even discussed how AI is going to influence visualizations here, by the way, but write that down for later.
Yeah.
And then for the hardware, and then one other thing is that I talked about the 3D modeling and the video production, and going back to question number 3, right? Building, what are we going to build? What is AI, artificial intelligence? Oh, okay, just kidding. Sorry, I didn't see that. Um, is you're going to build a 3D model, you're going to build content. Some of it's going to be static, some of it's going to be animated, some of it's going to be a full video production with maybe with a voiceover or a host.
Yeah.
And then you're going to want to disseminate it. Well, one of the great things about like Unreal, some of the game engines, is how you can then affect that into a web streaming real-time visualization. We didn't really get into real-time visualizations, but real-time visualization is where you get to participate as this group. Like we could have um, a 3D model, and we could all be twisting around and looking at it from different perspectives. And Joaquin could be elaborating on, what his preferred option is and everything, and everybody would get it all at the same time. That's the
Yeah.
blessings of real-time visualization. It's not the only tool that you need to use. It's just one of the tools, um, but you need to share over the web. You need to share virtually.
Yeah.
And what we've found, and Jackie knows it, Joaquin knows it, I know it, and that's we use a web service called Kula, which is a little bit like Esri Story Map, but it's super lightweight, super dynamic, and pretty darn simple to use, and can handle any type of media that you would ever want to throw at it. So I definitely recommend that. And then getting on to the hardware thing, just look at your software, and they're going to tell you your hardware requirements. Um, do those, but then if you can buy more RAM, if you can get bigger cards, if you can, just get whatever you can, that's where you're going to be spending money. Instead of software and hardware, spend your money on hardware, and then try to go minimal like Verge is, since we work in, we're up here in the Northwest in the projects, right? We're with no money.
Yeah.
So, and and then you'll be able to knock it out of the park with your creativity and your storytelling. That's where the money's at, is in creativity and storytelling. Your content is is what it is.
Got it. Great. Thank you, Kurt. There's a question in the audience. Really quick, I want to get to this before we end. We got 3 minutes here. Mostawal, you're asking, when do we use these things? So we touched on that a little bit earlier, and that is kind of determined by the public engagement level and concern. And so what we're going to, just to give you kind of a rule of thumb to help you consider these things and when to invite us to a PDT as an advisor would be projects where there is a concerned community group, a concerned municipality, a concerned permitting agency that we can help with that visual communication and help PMs really tell that message and take some of that burden off of the PM's shoulder and have this be a tool that can hopefully make partners out of this process as opposed to adversaries. So that is the answer to that question. So thank you, Kurt, for that great information. And yeah, we're Unreal Engine. I'm trying to get that approved right now through our headquarters IT. That's kind of the next step for this whole thing is really immersive visualizations and web-based driving simulations. All right, let's get rid of this. All right, bear with me.
Hey, Joaquin, I just wanted to ask quickly while we're on the subject of software. That video you showed where it's that layered approach of you're showing all the design data layered in. What programs are you using to create that?
I'm sorry, which one was that? What the
that
beginning?
Was like a slew. It was the
I
didn't capture them.
What
Yeah.
The Harkins.
the construction phasing?
Yeah.
Where we're showing, yeah. So Diana did that in Lumion.
Wow. Okay.
All right.
That's real effective.
Oh yeah. No, it's awesome. Love it.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. All right, guys. So next steps. We're going to document findings. And what you see on the screen here, this is a screenshot from the BIM4I implementation plan. So this is the overall implementation plan that was completed in 2023. And the circled parts here are what this task force is responsible for, visualizations. And so kind of like, right, this first quarter of 2024, we're responsible for equipping districts to use 3D visualizations for select projects. So, how does that happen? That happens through kind of summarizing what we've talked about over the past 6 months and using that as guidelines to help districts utilize what's being developed in these BIM4I pilot projects. So these pilot projects, right there, if you're involved with one, you'll know it. And so it's just basically taking that civil 3D model and importing that into your visualization software. And then as we move along, the idea is to eventually implement this across the state by the middle of 2026. So that's what you see here. So our next steps, we're going to document kind of what we've talked about over the past 6 months. And then seeing where that's at, it'll probably just be an email out to the original task force members, and then possibly have our last meeting, which would be a focus meeting for task force members, just to go over the findings if there's any questions about that. So we'll see how that plays out. So that's where we're at. And we finished up and we're 1 minute over. And let's see if there's any final questions, comments. If not, I'll adjourn this thing. And thank you everyone for showing up, that showed up and stayed on for an hour and a half. I know that's kind of taxing for a meeting.
Thank you.
All
Joaquin.
right. Yeah, I heard somebody.
I just said thank you, Joaquin, and Jackie.
Oh.
Jackie, stick around.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. I appreciate it, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank
Great
you.
meeting.
Thank you.
All right. I'll just share this real quick.
Yeah.
Let me share my screen and get to And it's interesting because he showed your overcross scene, and I went, wow, that looks awful familiar.
Yeah, that looks so good.
Let me get to this other one too. There you go. And then the SIM4. But when I saw yours, you did this, went the same direction with the wildlife and everything, but like I said, the same concept. And you know, I'm the bridge architect for North State California, like from San Francisco, Sacramento up. And I do a lot of work up in the North State in the tribal community. So the salmon motif you have on your barrier, I went, I know what that is. You know, you know, it's like, so I just realized how close we are really together, you know, with our design. But anyway, but there you go. This is how ours turned out.
That's so awesome. What did you use for this visual that I'm seeing right now?
This is Form Z.
Form Z. Okay.
Yeah. This
I
is
love how your stamps turned out.
Yeah, we had one of our staff who is in school for animation illustration, and she joined our group because she wanted to get into the architectural field, but in the animation side. And she has an artistic hand. And we asked her, hey, we have this bare structure that we need to do some aesthetics. And within like 10 minutes, she had ideas and sketches for us all ready to go. We're like, oh, and then we put them together, modeled it up, and did a quick study, you know, for it. But yeah, but there you go. There's some of the different, you know, alternative. But when I saw yours during the intro in the meeting, I went, wow, that looks familiar. But
Yeah.
you know, but anyway, so there you go. Like I said, I just wanted to share because I'm not sure when we'll meet together again, and then you know,
Yeah, definitely.
you know, when I have an opportunity. But there you go. So
that turned out so great. I especially like how you had the different 2D graphics of just the stamps and like how just the different alternatives. That's kind of what I was trying to do too as well, but I was so for the project team met and the stakeholders came up with like a list of animals that they'd like to see represented as stamps on the walls, and that's kind of how that came along. There is, I think, a list of 25 or so, and yeah, just going through those alternatives and just the graphic that I provided. Joaquin was my favorite.
Yeah, it looks good. That's what, but like I said, when you showed it during the previous meeting, you know, like, oh, I know that structure. I know a structure just like that. You know, it seemed to be common. Yeah, I get you with the animals. We have a project down south that's on a freeway next to a zoo, and all the different pilasters on the sound wall, each one had to have a different animal. And like I said, there's like the whole zoo list of animals they want us to show.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. You know?
And they want to see it in different sizes. Like what does it look like at 30 feet?
Exactly.
20 feet?
Okay. Then you get it. And then comes the magic question. Can you build it? You know,
Yes.
what are you going to form line it? Are you going to use metal cutouts? What are you going to do? Okay. I'll let you go. I'll let you go, but I just wanted to share that with you that, you know, we have something in common, reaching across the border.
Yes, I thank you for sharing. Like that was awesome. I need to look into this Form Z software because that was really cool.
Yeah, just check it out. It's getting better and better. And there's a new version coming out that's do that. But we've been using it for the 20 years I've been working with Caltrans. And from old versions, all, you know, it's gone through many versions, but it's getting better and better too, you know. But like I said, there's all kinds of software out there, you know, pick, choose, and go with it. Hey, Joaquin.
Hey, just want to turn off the recording. I just realized I didn't, in case you guys were talking about terrible things.
Had our conversation. You just had our conversation recording.